Think the food court's still open?
Here we go.
Look out!
Oh, he got me! Oh no, we're going down! Oh no!
In the 1950s, people began developing robots. At first, they were built for entertainment and theme parks. Over time, more advanced models appeared, designed to replace almost every kind of human work. By 1990, tensions had reached a breaking point. Robots were no longer content with serving humans and started demanding rights. A robot named Peanut became the leader of a rebellion, which soon escalated into a 2-year war between humans and machines. The conflict dragged on, and humans struggled because robots never needed rest. In the middle of the war, a scientist named Ethan, head of the company's center, introduced a new technology called the neurohelmet. This device allowed humans to link their minds to drones and fight remotely without risking their own lives. The invention turned the tide, and with its help, humans eventually won the war. The world would never be the same again. This is the electric state. After the defeat, about 6,000 robots were forced into a restricted area known as the exclusion zone, secured by walls and heavy defenses. Meanwhile, the neurohelmet was mass-produced and sold to the public. It became more than a weapon. People used it to access a shared virtual world, and its popularity spread across the globe. During this period, a gifted child named Christopher gained attention when he took a university exam at a very young age. He finished it in 1 hour, a test that was said to have taken Einstein 3 days. His sister Michelle encouraged him to pursue higher education, proud of his abilities and convinced that he could change the world. Although Christopher was brilliant, he did not want to leave his family. Michelle reassured him, promising to visit during school breaks. When vacation came, he returned home, and together they watched their favorite cartoon, Kid Cosmo. During that time, Christopher admitted that professors often invited scientists to study his brain, which left him uneasy. Tragedy struck soon after. While traveling with their parents, Christopher and Michelle were involved in a serious car accident. Michelle woke up in the hospital only to learn she was the sole survivor. Both her parents and Christopher had died. 4 years later, in 1994, Michelle was living with her foster father, Ted. Ted was obsessed with the neurohelmet and often communicated with her through drones instead of seeing her in person. His interest in her was selfish. He had adopted her to receive government financial support. Ted also bought cheap goods smuggled out of the exclusion zone. To keep Michelle from escaping, he locked a tracking bracelet around her ankle, since she had already tried to run away several times. At school, students were required to use the neurohelmet for their lessons, but Michelle refused. She preferred books and believed the device pulled people away from reality. Not long after, she woke one night to a strange noise outside her window. Curious, she looked out and saw a robot approaching.
No. Come on.
It chased her into her room, and though she tried to hide under the bed, the machine quickly found her. The robot resembled the cartoon character Kid Cosmo. Instead of attacking, it asked Michelle to repair its broken voice module. Once she fixed it, the robot revealed that it was Christopher. Michelle refused to believe him at first. Then the robot made a hand gesture that only Christopher used when he was alive. The familiar sign convinced her. At that moment, Ted woke from the noise. Angry, he tried to call the police when he saw the robot. Michelle stunned him and fled with Christopher.
Robot attack!
Before leaving, Christopher broke the tracking bracelet on Michelle's ankle. When Ted regained consciousness, he sent a drone to chase them, but Michelle managed to escape by driving away. The following day, their car broke down with a flat tire, and the spare was also unusable. While resting, Michelle asked how Christopher had survived. Christopher explained that his body was still alive, hidden somewhere by the Center Corporation. His consciousness had been transferred into the robot, but he did not know which branch controlled his body. Michelle asked if there was anyone who might help. Christopher said Dr. Amhurst once assisted him. Michelle remembered he was the same doctor who had told her about Christopher's death. Christopher then pointed out a location on a map. Dr. Amhurst was in the exclusion zone, in a place called Tabletop. Michelle worried about how to enter, since the zone was surrounded by walls and security, but then she recalled that Ted often bought smuggled goods from there. Searching the car, Michelle found the sender's address on one of Ted's shipments. She and Christopher decided to follow the lead and travel by train. During the journey, Christopher noticed how addicted people had become to the neurohelmet. Many were so lost in the virtual world that they ignored everything around them. Some even sat beside a corpse without realizing it. The sight left Christopher saddened by how far people had drifted from reality. That night, Michelle and Christopher reached the address from Ted's shipment. There, they saw more addicts wandering aimlessly with neurohelmets on, lost to the virtual world. From hiding, they watched as a trailer truck pulled in. The driver was Keats, a smuggler from the exclusion zone. Michelle saw him attempt to sell weapons to a buyer through a drone. When the buyer refused to pay and tried to shoot him, a robot leapt from the truck and attacked.
Yes, sir. Yeah, original shells and everything. I throw them in for free.
Well, then I'll pay the zip.
This robot was Herman, Keats's assistant. As Keats and Herman dismantled the buyer's drone, Michelle and Christopher slipped quietly into the trailer. Unaware of their presence, Colonel Bradbury was already tracking them with a drone. The next day, Keats drove his truck to his base near the exclusion zone wall. At the base, Keats and Herman carried their goods underground into a hidden facility that also served as a tunnel into the zone. Michelle and Christopher, who had been hiding inside a crate, slipped out when Keats became distracted. They were quickly caught. Keats demanded to know what they were doing there. Michelle explained that she wanted to enter the exclusion zone. Keats refused, warning her it was far too dangerous, especially for someone her age. Before the argument could continue, an elevator rose, signaling an arrival. Keats told Herman and Christopher to hide, then pretended with Michelle that they were siblings. The visitor turned out to be Bradbury's drone. Bradbury already knew Michelle had escaped with a yellow robot and demanded she hand it over. Keats tried to deny it, but Bradbury did not believe him. Herman prepared to strike, but Bradbury seized Keats as a shield and opened fire. Michelle hurled a gas canister, filling the room with smoke and plunging it into darkness. Keats tried to fight back, but Bradbury's drone destroyed his weapon and wrapped its claws around his throat. Michelle begged him to spare Keats, promising to give herself up. Bradbury insisted she hand over the robot, saying his mission was to shut it down. At that moment, Herman dropped a heavy crate on it, creating enough chaos for Michelle, Christopher, and Herman to escape toward a train. Keats started the engine, but Bradbury shot at it, damaging the train. As Bradbury took aim at Christopher, Herman threw his gun aside in distraction. Michelle then rammed a tractor into the drone, triggering a landslide that buried it. When the ground settled, Keats ordered everyone to flee the collapsing tunnel. They made it out alive, but the cave-in sealed their only exit. They were now trapped inside the exclusion zone. Moments later, Herman heard something approaching. Keats quickly told them to hide. A swarm of scavenger robots passed by, broken machines that attacked others for spare parts. Once the danger passed, Michelle asked Keats to help her find Dr. Amhurst. She believed Amhurst knew where Christopher's real body was and how they might escape. She explained he was in a place called Tabletop. The journey was long, so Keats led them to his garage. Michelle noticed a car without an engine, but Herman soon revealed his full power by activating his giant robot form. He lifted the car and carried Michelle, Keats, and Christopher inside. As they traveled toward Tabletop, the group passed battlefields littered with wrecked robots from the old war. During the ride, Keats revealed that he had once been a U.S. soldier who fought against the machines. He was gravely injured but survived thanks to Herman, who had saved him. From that day forward, they had never been apart. Ethan was connected to the neurohelmet when the system suddenly malfunctioned. Furious, he demanded an explanation from his team. They informed him that before his dismissal, Dr. Amhurst had planted a virus in the system. The virus had transferred Christopher's consciousness, which powered the entire network, to another location. The neurohelmet system depended entirely on Christopher's brain. Without it, the network began to collapse and would fail completely within days. Tracing the source, they discovered Christopher's consciousness had been moved into the yellow robot that had escaped with Michelle. Ethan then entered the virtual world of the neurohelmet to contact Colonel Bradbury. He ordered Bradbury to capture the robot and bring it back to center, promising to restore Bradbury's drone and grant him unlimited resources in return. Meanwhile, Michelle and her group arrived at a place called Tabletop. From a distance, they spotted a shopping mall. Without warning, robots inside hurled a refrigerator at them, knocking Herman to the ground.
Look out! Oh no, we're going down! Oh no!
Moments later, a robot named Perplexo captured the group and dragged them into the mall. Inside, they discovered a hidden community of robots. The robots explained that they had chosen the mall as their shelter to protect themselves from scavengers and to build a society where they could choose their own work. Their leader, Peanut, apologized for the attack. He had mistaken them for scavengers. Peanut then warned that the presence of humans endangered their community and told Michelle and Keats they had to leave the next morning. Michelle refused to give up. She revealed that Senna had taken her brother's body and transferred his mind into the yellow robot. She asked Peanut if he knew Dr. Amhurst, since he might know where Christopher's body was kept. Peanut admitted he once knew Amhurst, a doctor skilled in merging human minds with machines, but said he had exiled them long ago to prevent conflict. Frustrated, Michelle tried to leave with Christopher that night. Peanut blocked her path, warning it was too dangerous, and Keats insisted they would search for Amhurst in the morning. Reluctantly, Michelle agreed to stay in the mall. Later, while the group was resting, a postman robot named Penny approached Michelle. Penny delivered a letter from Dr. Amhurst addressed to Christopher, asking him to meet at Pinnacle Road. Herman immediately warned that the place was extremely dangerous because it was controlled by scavengers, and they would need help to get there. Peanut offered to accompany them and brought along Popfly, an old robot who carried a baseball bat. Despite his worn appearance, Popfly had once fought scavengers and knew how to handle them. Meanwhile, Colonel Bradbury arrived near the mall and saw Michelle's group leaving in Peanut's car. The group traveled across the desert toward Amherst's location. That night, Penny guided them to the address, where they spotted a house with its lights still on. Before they could reach it, scavengers swarmed in from every direction. They ran for safety, but the door of the house would not open. The ground suddenly gave way beneath them, and they fell into an underground chamber. There, Michelle finally met Dr. Amhurst. He was astonished that Christopher's mind had been successfully transferred into a robot. Michelle, angry and desperate, demanded to know where Christopher's real body was. Amhurst revealed that it was being kept at Center's headquarters in Seattle. When Michelle pressed him for answers, Amhurst called over his robot assistant, PC, which contained all the data. On a monitor, Amhurst explained what had happened 4 years earlier after the car accident. Christopher had been found in a coma and was close to death. Scientists discovered that his brain could sustain the neurohelmet network. To keep him alive, Center connected his mind to the system. A year later, Christopher's consciousness reawakened. Amhurst admitted that he had begged Ethan to release Christopher, but Ethan refused and threatened to kill him if he revealed the truth. Before escaping, Amhurst secretly created a program that transferred Christopher's mind into a robot and embedded memories to guide him toward the exclusion zone. Hearing this, Keats lost control and punched Amhurst for lying to Michelle. At that moment, Bradbury's drone appeared on the monitor. Moments later, Bradbury himself stormed into the chamber. The lights went out as chaos erupted. Peanut attacked Bradbury, but was quickly struck down. Michelle and the others tried to flee as Center's drones poured in. Popfly opened fire, and a fierce battle followed. One drone cornered Michelle and Christopher, but Herman destroyed it from behind. Bradbury then charged at Michelle. Amhurst shouted for her to run with Christopher while he stayed behind. Amhurst believed Bradbury would not harm a human, only robots. But a drone suddenly fired from behind, killing him instantly. To everyone's shock, the drone was being controlled directly by Ethan. Without hesitation, Ethan ordered Bradbury to complete the mission and capture Christopher. Moments later, Michelle and Christopher were surrounded. One drone seized Christopher and carried him away. Another advanced on Michelle, but Bradbury shot it down and told her to go home instead of risking her life. When Michelle and the others returned to the mall, they found it in ruins after the attack. Many robots had been destroyed, including Perplexo. Meanwhile, at Senna headquarters, Christopher saw his real body suspended inside a tube, paralyzed and unresponsive. Ethan appeared and ordered his men to transfer Christopher's mind back into his body. Bradbury confronted him, accusing him of murder and of exploiting a child's brain for experiments. Ethan defended himself, insisting that Christopher's mind had made the neurohelmet possible and helped humanity win the war. He argued that sacrifices were necessary for survival. Then he commanded his team to lock the program, making sure Christopher's mind could never be moved again. Back at the ruins of the mall, Michelle turned to PC. She asked if he carried all of Amherst's knowledge. PC confirmed that he did. Michelle then asked whether he had the security codes to leave the exclusion zone. PC said yes, and he also had access codes for the center facility holding Christopher. With this, Michelle decided to go to Seattle to rescue her brother. Herman promised to help, using his repaired giant body. PC warned them that removing Christopher from center system would collapse the neurohelmet network and shut down every drone worldwide. The robots debated, but ultimately agreed to support Michelle. Peanut hesitated, fearing another war, but Michelle argued that freeing Christopher was the only way to end the conflict. Inspired by her resolve, Peanut agreed to fight. The group prepared for battle. Michelle and her allies boarded trucks and headed toward Seattle. The next day, Herman, controlled by Keats, launched their attack by hurling a car into Center's building as a diversion. Ethan immediately deployed every drone against Herman. While they focused on him, Michelle and PC slipped into the facility. Herman continued to retreat, drawing the swarm away. The fight was brutal. One drone self-destructed, toppling Herman's massive body. From the wreckage, the smaller Herman robot emerged and pulled Keats to safety. On the battlefield, the robots clashed with wave after wave of drones. Then Ethan appeared through a special combat drone, tearing through their ranks with ease. During the chaos, Bradbury confronted Peanut. He asked why Peanut was willing to risk everything. Peanut answered that he was fighting for freedom, even if it cost him his life. Instead of killing him, Bradbury revealed the location of Ethan's control room. Admitting that Ethan was the true enemy, Bradbury shut down his own drone. The battle raged on. Ethan's drone disabled Herman's giant body and hurled Keats aside. As it moved in for the kill, the smaller Herman rushed forward, shielding Keats and striking back. At the same time, Peanut infiltrated the headquarters, determined to face Ethan directly and force him to negotiate. Keats was devastated when he saw Herman's body riddled with bullets. Herman's smaller form collapsed, ending his fight for good. With the battle still raging outside, PC guided Michelle into Christopher's chamber and drove the guards away. Inside, she found her brother's paralyzed body sealed in a pod. Desperate, she asked if there was a way to reach him. PC explained that the only path was through the neurohelmet, by entering his subconscious. Michelle put on the helmet and found herself inside Christopher's mind. She begged him to come with her, but he refused. He confessed that he felt guilty because his brain had powered the neurohelmet system that had harmed so many people. Michelle told him that was why she came, to free him and end the system once and for all. Christopher shook his head. He said he had seen his own body and knew that as long as he lived, Senna would never release him. They would keep using his brain forever, and he did not want to remain trapped that way. He asked Michelle to end his suffering. She refused at first, insisting that PC could move his mind into a robot again. Christopher explained that it was no longer possible because Senna had locked his consciousness inside the system. He begged her again, saying it was the only way. With a heavy heart, Michelle turned off his life support system. Christopher died, and at that moment, every neurohelmet in the world shut down. Drones everywhere collapsed. The war had ended, but Keats grieved the loss of Herman. Then Herman's giant body opened, and to everyone's surprise, the smaller Herman stepped out alive. His true form had always been small. Ethan was later arrested for exploiting a child. In the aftermath, Michelle shared a video message, urging people to return to real life and to build peace with robots. Among the ruins, the yellow robot suddenly powered on again. A fragment of Christopher's mind remained inside, leaving behind a sign of hope for the future. The end. So the moral of the story is, never let your brain become robot Wi-Fi.